Hey guys, it's GHP, and welcome back to our Dusk Road review. Today, we're going to be looking at all the Primal cards for this set. So let's start with Cobalt Waystone. It's another one in the Waystone cycle. I think all of these cards are quite good. I think this is one of the more valuable ones for control decks. Getting a free Aegis is really nice. Often you would sideboard Island's Choice, for example, to play around, say, a Zindo's Gift. Now you have free answers. Also makes cards like Sabotage slightly worse. I just think this card is very powerful, even though it might seem obsolete in a lot of games, because, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't matter. But this card can just win you games by playing a regular power. I've definitely won a couple of games, and I've definitely lost a couple of games because my opponent just got a free Aegis, or still playing their power per turn, instead of having to commit a real card to it. Um, I think this card is excellent. Yes, it makes your seats a little bit worse, and that's really the only downside to this card. Uh, just like all the other Waystones, I think this card's definitely quite good at constructed, and I'm definitely going to be playing a bunch of these, and I think people need to be playing more Waystones than they currently are. Island's Intervention. So this one, the fast spell ones. Let's take a look. So it's first one, deal 3 damage to an enemy unit with flying. So what flyers in the game right now really take a hit for this? Valkyrie Enforcer, Unseen Commando are the two that come to my mind. I'm sure there's lots of others, but a lot of the good flyers have a lot of health in this game. So I don't think this is often killing. At least, unless you're trying to be aggressive. Negate a 3-cost enemy spell. So the best 3-cost spells are Banish and Slay. Those are great. The fact that this doesn't hit Torch, Annihilate, Varus, Favor, Death Strike, Lightning Storm, the whole shebang. Uh, I don't think this effect is very relevant. I just think this is too specific. Your Yeti get plus 3 health this turn. Okay, that's okay. I think this card's okay in, say, a Yeti deck. I think you have to be able to use the last mode effectively for this card to be good. I just don't think the Yeti's deck need this when they have Permafrost, Rockslide, and Torch, and Pummel if they feel like getting that aggressive for early mana interaction. So I don't think this card's very good. I think it's an awesome card, and I love these three mode cards that have flexibility. I just feel like these have just been too weak individual modes. And yes, you could say each one is worth a third of a mana, so a total of the cards should be worth one, which maybe that's true. The problem is the modes just aren't that stellar in my opinion, so I think this card's that good. One with one for Scout. No, a 1 mana 1/1 is not gonna be good enough. Scout is nice. Scout is worth about 0.5 of a mana because you draw half a card when you scout. A 1/1 body is not worth 1 mana. To me, I think a 1/1 body is worth about half a mana. So yeah, you could say this card is worth 1 mana by my standards then. But there are so many other good plays for 1 mana that feel like they're worth a lot more than that 1 mana that I just don't think this card's worth it even in just a Yeti deck. Jump Kick. So in Constructed, this is not the type of combat trick that you want. Flying is not a good combat trick for Constructed because cards like Sandstorm Titan exist. You just make it very difficult for, like, Levitate has never been good, except in decks that have Infiltrate, or they're using it to actually just draw cards, like Felt Control was doing pre-Strategize, which I'm so excited to talk about. I don't think this card's very good at Constructed. This card's okay at Draft, but I think this card's just worse than Levitate. Plus one's not that relevant of a combat trick either. So I just don't think this card's very good for Constructed. Levitate doesn't see a lot of play, and this one I think is worse than Levitate. Powder Glider. So it's a 1 mana 1/2. Stun an enemy unit with flying. So the Yeti really have it out for the flyers. That's something I'm starting to understand. So maybe there's some lore about the Yeti hitting the Haru. I don't know. When you play a spell, this guy has prowess. For those of you who play Magic, when you play a spell, it gets +1/+1 this turn. I don't think this card is stellar. I think it's better than some of the Yetis we've seen in the set currently. But I don't think this card's great. I don't think the Yeti's deck is that much of a Spells Matters deck. It does play Torch, Perma, Rockslide. Permafrost doesn't trigger this, so Torch and Rockslide do. But I think a 1 mana 1/2 that often just, like, it made zero damage in a game because every 2-drop blocks this except Temple Scribe. And because I just think this card's a little too weak. Although the card has potential, and if there's a lot of early game flyers at some point, The Yeti have a lot of good ways to deal with it now. But until that happens, I don't think this card is good. Maybe this is a tournament sideboard card if the Yeti's deck picks up, though, where you can play this against, say, Huru if that picks up as well. Oh, wrong card. 1 mana, 0/2 flyers. Awful. When you play Dinosaur, it gets +1 attack. So you play this on whatever turn. I think you need like a 1 mana 1/2 flyer is not good. A 1 mana 2/2 flyer is alright, especially that one that's easy to cast. I think by the time you actually pay or you get 2 dinosaurs to make this card worth its mana, I think it's already kind of too late. I think this card is just too much do nothing. It also doesn't block very well early. So I don't think this card's playable. The dinosaur deck just doesn't need a card like this currently. The dinosaur deck has lots of flyers and lots of ways to win the game. This is not what's fixing or affecting the problems the dinosaur deck currently have. Alright. 1 mana 1/1. Ultimate. Pay 3. Make this 1 mana 4/4 if the enemy is cursed. 1 mana 4/4s are pretty good. But you have to pay 4 mana in total. And they need to be cursed. So, the things to note is it doesn't have to be player, it is just cursed, which is nice. Sorry, I need to make sure my headset was good, because I may have accidentally unplugged it earlier midstream. So Permafrost does work. The problem is right now the curses are quite weak, and the Feln Tempo deck does not need more things to do with its mana, because it draws a lot of cards, has a lot of selection. I don't think this is the type of card that makes the Unseen better. I think it's just too weak of a body before you activate, and it's a lot of input to put in to make it a to make it a 4/4. And I think by the time that you actually curse something and get to pay the mana for this, I just think it's too late for this card to be really a game-changing card. Snow Pelting is a really weird one. So deal 2 damage to an enemy. For each of your Yeti, you may pay 2 and exhaust and deal 2 damage to an additional enemy. So the thing to note is you cannot hit you can't hit the same target multiple times. That really hurts this card. If it could hit the same target, it would be better. The fact that it cannot makes this card significantly worse, where unless you're playing against a lot of 1 or 2 toughness creatures, I don't think this is very good. If you are, it's okay. Maybe this is a sideboard card for aggro deck, for the Yeti deck against aggro decks, because words are very difficult. You can continuously push damage that way. It cannot hit face. Oh, right, yes it can. It can hit face once. I'm smart. And if you're at a board stall, this can be okay. I just don't feel like this is high enough impact compared to the cards the Yeti deck already has. But against other aggro decks, this card could be okay. Especially if there were some Endurance Yetis, for example. Or a Yeti that you aren't currently attacking with. So, like a lot of aggro mirrors and in a board stall until someone finds removal. This is pretty good for that. 2 mana, deal 1 damage to an enemy unit, which is abysmal. At night, deal 5 damage instead. I think this card is really bad, and the reason for it is you need additional input to actually make this card useful. I wouldn't play Temper right now. Temper's better than this card, at least on the front half. Yes, this can come down and hit some big targets. Cannot deny that. But I think the fact that you have to commit Night as well for this to happen, like at turn 3, and you play your 3-drop that triggers Night, you then are kind of forced to play this next turn, or your Night ends, unless you could continuously string Night. Maybe in a hardcore Night deck, this card sees a little bit of play, but it's competing with Permafrost and Annihilate for early, cheap interaction, and Vera's Favor is probably always going to be better than this card. So I just think this card is kind of too weak in the game right now. I think this card could have potential if the game was built differently, where we just had different removal spells, for example. I think just currently this card's too weak, though. Dark Veil Agent. 2/2 for 2, Nightfall. Okay. When you start a turn at night, your Unseen get ages. So I don't think this is good in the Found Tempo deck. I do think this card is good in a Unseen/Night Matters deck, which is kind of the same deck. I think there it's actually solid. A 2/2 for 2 is very weak. One that deals one to both players or draws you both a card is, not great. Giving your Unseen Aegis, though, is super relevant. Blanking removal or making your opponent burn their premium removal on this so they, in the future, you don't get absolutely boned by by the Aegis is pretty good. I think this card is solid in the Unseen deck. I don't think this is needed in, say, Fountain Tempo, but I think specifically if you're trying to be an Unseen style deck, maybe with Bond and stuff, I think this card's good. Fearless Yeti is a card that I think is better than people think. I don't think this card is good. Let's stop there. It's not good. But in the Yeti deck, this is a solid 2-drop that's probably better than some of the others. Like the 2-mana 2/2 that if it hits the enemy player, you get a snowball, kinda sucks. This card's great with Wump. So if you play this after Wump, you instantly get a Scout. The Overwhelm means often, your opponent will trade, and then you get a Scout, so your 2-drop trades with theirs, plus you get upside. It attacks okay. It does die to Vera's Favor, which is a big deal, and the regular removal that would hit 2-drops. But I think this card is potential in only the Yeti deck, but in the Yeti deck, this is a solid 2-drop in my opinion that should be played in that deck, presuming that the other 2-drops are just not insane. And right now, the only one I can think of that's better, really, well, the only two is a card we're going to look at in like 3 cards, and the champion of Skycrack. 2-mana 1/1, Flying Nightfall. When you play Dinosaur, the Dinosaur gets health. I think this card's really weak. It's such a bad body. The Nightfall doesn't really matter, and buffing a Dinosaur's health just doesn't do enough. The Dinosaur deck is already just big stats. It doesn't need to get bigger, and it especially doesn't need to play an awful body or an awful card even to make them better. This is the card I was referring to. This card is great in the Yeti deck. 2-mana 2/3. Summon, move each Yeti in your deck 1 card closer to the top. So basically the whole idea with this is it means you're going to draw more Yetis. So it's a 2-mana 2/3 Yeti, which is okay. That also just makes your draws better. I think this card is excellent, only in the Yeti deck obviously. A 2-mana 2/3 vanilla, it sucks. But I think this card is excellent in the Yeti deck. It should just be played as a 4-of. I just think it does enough to work on winning you the game. Simple as that. Like, you could just make it so you flood us. Plus having Crest in your deck, the Yeti deck has a fair bit of card selection. Plus the Scout Yeti we just looked at. The Yeti deck is good at making sure it doesn't run out of gas. That's really important for an aggro deck, especially a tribal one that's trying to get all of its pieces together. You just kind of blank for a turn, and sometimes the deck just falls apart. This is great. Storm Talisman, 2-mana Scout, but that's awful. Pay 8 to deal 2 to an enemy. I think this card is unplayable. That's so much mana to deal 2. If I wanted to pay 8 mana to shoot somebody, I'd play Channel the Tempest. And playing a 2-mana Relic does not help that problem. Especially, Scout is not worth 2 mana. And I think having this effect is just not relevant enough in most games. When you get to 8 mana, this is not what I want to be doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to present you with the best card in set 3, the Dusk Road. Strategize. So this card is Deceiving. If you play control decks, you know this card is powerful. But it's deceiving how powerful it is compared to a card like Trailblaze. Trailblaze is... Okay, let's look at it Magic just for a second. If you play Magic, this might matter to you. This is comparing up to Brainstorm. Except Brainstorm without a fetch land. Like, the fetch land's included. Yes, this is a slow speed spell, but being able to say, okay, I'm against Fel Control, playing Fel Control. So Mirror, I gotta toss away this Lightning Storm that doesn't do anything. That's really nice. Or I'm against aggro, let's toss this Vera away. Any control deck, I think, starts with 4 of this in it, and I think a lot of blue decks that aren't control decks still should play this card, because it's better than Wisdom in a lot of those decks, because it's just cheaper. I think this card is amazing. I think this card is seeing play in every control deck for a very long time, unless they print some ridiculous draw spells. And I think there might be a better chance of them printing a better draw spell in Magic at this point than this, because this plus Wisdom is already great for control decks plus Crest. They got lots of new cards in this set. And we haven't even looked at Crest. 2 mana, 1 wood. That sucks. When you start your turn at night, it becomes a 5/3 with Reckless. I think this card's awful. A 5/3 with Reckless is still not that good. And the fact that you could just Fair's Favor or kill it with every removal in the game. Plus, you need more input to make this card work with Knight, and it doesn't already have Knight on it. I just don't see why you wouldn't play a card with individual power when this card requires other cards to make it work. So I think this card's just bad. This card is deceivingly disappointing. This card is obvious. Well, okay, this card is not obvious. Backlash versus this. Backlash is only better if you care about the damage, because Unseal, for example, hits a Zindo's Gift and Permafrost, which are huge. This is why I think this is, if you ask me which is better, this is going to be better than Backlash, if you want a no context answer. The problem is Backlash is often not main deckable. One issue is people are trying to play this card. They play it in their tempo deck. They tap out to play their threat. Oops, it died. It's not protect. It's a lot harder to hold up 2 mana than 1 mana. And because of that, I don't think this card is stellar. I've had lots of games where I've played this. I've drawn 1 or 2 and it's rotted in my hand the whole game as well, because there's been nothing relevant to counter. That happens. And maybe your opponent plays a spell after you just tapped out to play your threat. I think this card is good. I don't think it's amazing. It's good to see tournament play and things like that. The card's never going to be bad, but I don't think this card is ever going to be a 4 of or anything like that. Blue decks are going to want 1 or 2, maybe. Especially tournament sideboards, though. It's great in control mirrors. That's the big one where this card's going to shine. Winter's Grasp. 2 mana, curse unit, stunned at night. I don't think this card's very good. The Nightfall deck already has a lot of good removal. I know this gives it Night, but the fact that this doesn't kill, say, Sandstorm Titan, Tavrod, but you're still playing it in your removal slot's really bad. I don't think it's better than Primal or Annihilate, and I don't think you need the additional removal. If you're going to play additional removal, I think you want Death Strike, for example, which I just think is as well better. Although this card I think could see play if the game was in a different shape, I just think this card is too weak compared to the other removal in the game in its current state. Yeti Windflyer. 2 mana, 1/1 flyer. That's pretty bad. Humbug's a pretty bad card. Yeti Ally. +1/+1. 2 mana, 2/2 flyer. That gets bumped by Wump and other Yeti Lords. Card's pretty good in the Yeti deck. I don't think it's an all-star. I think it's another okay 2-drop. I don't know if it's better than the 3/1 Overwhelmed Scout card we looked at earlier. But I think this card is fine just in the Yeti's deck. It's just a solid flyer. It's a solid threat. It's kind of a small body, but it's Twilight Raptor, I guess is how we can look at it. And Twilight Raptor's not a stellar card, but good in aggro found. I think this card will see some play in the Yeti deck. I don't think it's an automatic card in your Yeti decks, though. Daring Pioneer is a card that I think is great. 3 out of 4 Overwhelm. Great. I like overstated things. Double Primal, understandable. When an enemy plays a spell, sacrifice this card to negate it. 2 things I want to mention. First of all, if you play 2 of these at the same time, you're in for a sad time. They both sacrifice. I learned this a very hard way when my opponent played a Seek Power and then Harsh Ruled me, and I had an Unseal in my hand that I could have held up instead. I learned a lesson. Second, this card hitting Seek Power is fine. A lot of people, that's their concern. Yes, late game, your opponent could sandbag a Seek Power and just use it as a removal spell when they don't need power, sure. But this is a 3 mana 4/4 that can Stone Rain your opponent. Stone Rain, for those of you who didn't play Magic, is a land destruction. 3 mana, destroy target land. That's what this does. If that hits a Seek Power, early game especially, often that's crippling. That's why a lot of times with Sabotage, you actually want to take their Seek Power, because, especially with the redraw system, it's actually quite likely that that's going to affect their game plan. Any deck that's playing Seek Power means it wants to get to at least like 5 on their curve a lot of the time. So I think this card is great, even if it's going to hit the weak targets. And when it hits something like, or it cuts your opponent off of card draw, or harsh rule, something like that, it's fine. And you can play this card, and yes, Find the Way can kill this card, for example. But you can still play it and just beat people down with it. It's a good body. It has Overwhelm. It's a 4/4. Like, this card does work, and I just think this card's great. And I think it's going to see a lot of play eventually. It's not seeing a lot now, but I think that's going to change. Electrify. 3 mana. At the end of the curse unit's turn, deals 1 damage to its owner. No. Last White Druid. 3 mana 1/5. Summon Nightfall. Eh. Your units you play at night transform into random units that cost 1 more instead. Okay, I'm going to evaluate this card twice because I don't know how it works. If the unit gets its enter the battlefield effect when it's transformed, it's okay. Because there's a lot of units like Praxis Displacer that are just like, you play them for the effect and they come with a body, instead of you play the body that comes with the effect, if that makes sense. If it does that, for example, trigger Praxis Displacer when you upgrade your 3-drop, then this card is okay, but it's still a 3 mana 1/5, which is awful. If it triggers your 3-drop, so to say, instead of the random 4-drop you got, then you could, in theory, play this in conjunction with a bunch of enter the battlefield effects and try to use it off that. But I don't think this card's very good. I think this card is just too weak of a body. Plus, the effect being random when there's a lot of low rolls in this game, like, okay, sets are designed to be drafted. That's why a lot of times I'm just like, this card's built for draft. So you're gonna get a lot of draft cards when you play this. Like, sometimes you play Night Chancellor Seraph, you see a card that you don't remember being in the game because it's there for draft, and you might not be a drafter. So you can just see a lot of random stuff that isn't good. So I don't think this card's very good. Nocturnal Observer. Blind Storyteller, get out of my deck. This card's excellent. 3 mana 2/3 is a bit tough. It's an Explorer, not too relevant right now. Might be in the future though. You may exhaust it to draw and discard. That's great. It has Nightfall. One thing to note is you play it, you can activate, and then next turn it's still technically night. You can activate again. So the first every night is kind of 2 nights for you, which is excellent. Card's great. Card's gonna see lots of play. It goes into Found Tempo deck. It goes into Reanimator. It goes into some Found Control list. Card's just great. Snow Fort. You need 10 plus 1 health. If I wanted to play this type of card, I'd just end up playing Xenon Obelisk. That's kind of all I have to say. There's a lot of buffing your units type effects in the game, and I just don't think I want to play a relic that just buffs health and doesn't do anything else. Sunken Tower. 3 mana. Once per turn you may pay 5 to play a copy of one of your units without Reckless, then give them both Reckless. After the 3rd use, sacrifice this to stun all units. This is a doozy. I don't think this card's very good. Because it's 3 mana do nothing. Then it's pay 5 to take a unit. It's gonna die at the end of turn, but you get to make an aggressive attack. So this is like, if I picture this card, I'm picturing this as an aggressive card. But it's 3 mana do nothing, and then it's so much more mana to try to get an effect. I don't think this card's very good. I don't think this card's going to see a lot of play. I know some people are going to joke around with it because it is more of a joke card. But I think at least for constructed and stuff and like actual tier decks and stuff, this card's not going to find a home. 3 mana 4/2 Reckless. Reckless is a real downside on cards. And it going into turn 4, which is Sandstorm Titan, other big 4-drops that I can't remember the name of to try to sound like my point is good. I just don't think this card does enough, and the Dinosaur deck doesn't mind stalling out and playing Carnosaur, Crystallize, Permafrost, Obelisk to try to win the game. This doesn't let you stall, so I don't think this card's good. Scaly Gruon is better. Alright, let's actually explain. The effect of when Wild Rider hits the enemy player gets +1 attack, and it being a Yeti, is not worth the extra mana from Scaly Gruon, and Scaly Gruon doesn't see a lot of play, because there's just better things to do against aggro. And this card wants you to be attacking, but it's put on a body that is actually built for you to block. Alright. Triple Primal. That's a lot. 3 mana, 3/3. Okay. Nightfall. Okay. Also, pay 6 to transform another unit into a 2/2 flyer. I don't think this card's very good. I think it's so hard to cast, and the effect can sometimes just be irrelevant. Sometimes you just hit like Sensor Titan and it gets lethal for you. But the Yeti deck doesn't need a card like this to break stalls. That's a big thing. So I don't think this card's very good. I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. I don't really have a lot to say on it. Cards that have this much influence requirement, though, need a lot of payoff, and this is not the payoff that you're looking for. Clutch Bait. Play a copy of one of your units. So Mirror Image, 1 more mana. If it's a dinosaur, give both +1/+1. So you pay an extra mana to potentially get +2/+2 over 2 bodies. That's okay. That's fine. The problem is Mirror Image doesn't see any play, because this requires you to already have a board. When you're ahead at all, and like especially if you play this on a killer card, it becomes a real killer of a card. It's excellent in that spot. My concern is when you don't have a board, this is kind of weak, and the Dinosaurs deck has a bunch of things it wants to do out for it, especially if it decides to play Sandstorm Titan. Even though it's not a Dino, it's Sandstorm Titan. It's like one of the best cards of the game. I think this card's okay. I just don't think the Dinosaur deck really needs it, so to say. 4 mana, 1/3. Oh god. If you draw a card, it gets +1 attack. This card is so slow. And until you get this thing to at least a 6/3, this card is just way below stats. And I'm not paying 4 mana and then waiting potentially 5 turns to make this card useful. 4 mana, 0/3 Flying. That's an interesting weapon. This is a draft card. Summon Scout. So Scout's worth half a mana. And then +0/+3 Flying is definitely not worth 3.5 mana. Elder's Feather doesn't see a lot of play. That gives something flying for 1 mana at +1 attack. I think this is just way too weak of a card to just ever see constructive play. This is just built to be drafted, and I understand that, but this card's just bad. 4 mana, 1/5. Your units with 2 or battle skills get +1/+1. Or have +1/+1, that's relevant. Static ability. I think the deck, if there's ever a deck that really cares about this text, I don't think this goes in it. There's already enough payoff for these double battle skill cards. Although I think the mechanic is awesome. Like, Unseen Commando is probably my favorite card in the game right now. I just don't think this card's very good. I think it's spread out across a weird body, and it doesn't block well with the current state of the game. And if you're behind a 4 mana 1/5, it's just not going to win you the game. There's also just better things to be doing. And if I want to buff those units, I just have weapons and tricks that I think are just better than this type of card. 4 mana 2/1 killer, summon Nightfall. A 4 mana 2/1 killer is abysmal. Abysmal, I tell you. We have a 3 mana 2/2 killer that has Scout on it. Like, no. This card's way too overstated. Overcosted for its stats. Its stats suck. And there's just a better version that costs less mana. I had a viewer actually be upset that I said this card was bad. I know this card is built for Mind Link, but 4 mana, do nothing at the start of the crush unit's turn, so it does something technically, actually, the turn it enters. Transform it to a random unit that costs 1 less. When it would cost 0, kill it. So I'm gonna play this on your 5-drop. Oh look, it's gonna hit me for 4 turns, and then it's gonna die. Great removal spell. If you're playing Primal, just play Polymorph or Permafrost. Like, they're just better. I know this card is built for Mind Link. That's like the only explanation I could come up with. So unless one of the game designers wants to tell me what this card was actually built for, that's what I'm going with. I just don't think this card's very good. I think it's way too weak to actually have an impact in a game. Or at least have a large impact. I just think other removal's better. And even if this was meant to be like a tier 1 removal spell, I don't think it would get played. Slash Dumper. 4 mana 3/3. Okay, it's a Yeti. That's good. Pay 4 to give this guy +2/+1 for each of your Yeti. That's great in board, so. each of your Yeti deal 1 to the enemy player. So this works on infiltrates and effects that matter on hitting the enemy player. And this guy's great in the board stall because A, you just deal damage to the enemy player, including this one deals 1, so you could pay 4. So if you play this, you have no board. It's a 4 mana 3/3. Then you could pay 4 to make this a 4/4 and deal 1 to your opponent, which is its floor. I think this card's an excellent Yeti. I think this card is just like what the Yeti deck wants. It's a mana dump. It has burn attached to it. I think this card's excellent in the Yeti deck. 4 mana 5/3 Yeti. When it hits the enemy player, play a snowman equal to your number of Yeti. So this card is on a bad body. 4 mana 5/3 is not good. But the thing is, you already have a bunch of Yeti, and this card got through, so you're probably just winning the game anyways. I think this card is very, very win more. When you just play this on an empty board, hitting your opponent and putting a 1/1 into play is not good. I think this card's quite weak, and I don't think this card's ever going to see play in the Yeti deck, because the Yeti deck just, like, if you get this wide on board, they have enough answers to just kill you. They don't need this type of effect. If you do get a large snowman, you need a big board. Alright. Hello, Jolton Feast Collar. You, my friend, are overrated. It's a 5 mana 4/3, hard to cast. Triple Primal. Aegis. Okay. The effect of when it attacks, draw a card, and then increase this ability by 1 is very powerful. I think this card is okay in control decks and stuff, but it's only okay. It's on a weak body. Of course, if this sticks around, it can win you the game. Of course. It's an Aegis threat with upside. But I would rather play other threats. Like, I think this card is significantly worse than Champion of Cunning. Just as a random example on the same cost. Champion of Cunning now is a great card if found control. But I think this card is just too weak. I know control decks have thought is why I could stick it. But control decks, your opponent often is stuck with removal in their hand. And then you play this. I think if I want a card like this, I want it to have immediate impact. Like if you look at found control, Champion buffs your board and doesn't die to torch, which is relevant. You can use it to pop Aegis, but so with this. Black Sky Harbinger can deals damage to your board, just blocks well if it sticks, but if it doesn't, you still dealt damage to the board often. That kills a few things, or if, depending on what you're against, it kills the board. Withering Witch sets up for your next card. Okay, that's a really bad example. Vera puts a unit in play. This card doesn't really do much when it enters, so this is clearly built for control decks, and I don't think it's as good as the other control decks finishers. Maybe they slot it in as, you know, champion number 5 or 6, but I don't think this is ever champion number 1 or 2, if that makes sense, or Jolton Feast Collar 1 or 2. I don't think, yes, if this sticks, it's powerful. I think this card's definitely going to see some play, but I don't think it's going to see a ton of play like some people think it will. Yes, drawing cards is powerful. So is just playing good win conditions, and I'm not sure this is the best win con. I have played it a fair bit myself. First I thought it was unplayable, then I thought it was okay. Now I still think it's a fine card that's going to see some play, but it is not an all-star. 5 mana 2/6. Exhaust it, give one of your Yeti +4 attack and fly in this turn. At the end of your turn, stud that Yeti. This requires you to already have a Yeti on board, and it's tempo negative, because you play it. 5 mana 2/6 sucks, honestly. I just don't think this card does a lot. The Yeti deck doesn't need this type of reach. It has lots of good reach. I'd rather play Obliterate or just other Yetis that deal damage. This card, to me, just doesn't work in the Yeti deck, and if it's not in the Yeti deck, it has no effect. And a 5 mana 2/6 would never see play. Let Out Most Skilled is a really interesting card. It's a 5 mana 4/5 Overwhelm. If you haven't unseen it, gets killer. 5 mana 4/5 Overwhelm killer is solid. I just don't think the Unseen deck needs this. Like, if they're going to play a 5-drop, why not play Champion? Or, you know, you have Zeta, for example. I believe that's her name. I think the problem with this card is that a lot of the 5-drops, it doesn't trade with. Or a lot of the 5-drops that it does trade with are like Shatterglass Mage that come down and have an effect. This doesn't trade well enough with other units that are of similar cost. Of course it trades down. It can easily kill a Cumbre healer. Or wait, it can't. It can kill Seraph. but I don't think it can kill the threats that you need your removal to kill. That's the power of Carnosaur. It comes down, it kills Titan, Mystic Center, Heart of the Vault, Seraph, Owls, Icaria. It kills so many things where this just doesn't kill a lot of the big threats in the game, which is why I don't think it's good. 5 mana, 3/5. Explorer. You may discard a card to give one of your units +1/+1 overwhelm. Dinosaur gets +2/+2 and overwhelm instead. Again, dinos don't need to be bigger. And this comes on a really weak body. It's card disadvantage if you want this effect. And a +2/+2 and overwhelm for 0 mana, so to say, is not bad. But I just don't think you want to play this card in your deck. I think there's other 5-drops to play. It doesn't impact the board enough. And the Dinos deck does not need to go bigger. And if it does, Xenon Obelisk is a real card. The crush unit and each enemy unit are reckless. It's 5 mana. I want to lose to Silence. If you're not against a deck with Silence, then you're paying 5 mana and you already need to have a good board. Like, you have to be in a board stall for this card to do anything. Otherwise, this card just does nothing. I think this card's absolutely awful because of that. It's so much mana for this effect. And if you aren't already either on parity or ahead, it just doesn't do anything. Alu Death Dreamer. 6 mana, 2/5 fire, Nightfall. That's a pretty weak body. When you play a curse, so Permafrost is the big one, but there's others. Play a 3/3 on a team with a random battle skill. So you need to play this card and 2 curses, in my opinion, to really get value out of this card. Because of that, I don't think this card is very good. I just don't think it's the top end the Unseen deck needs. Card's powerful. The effect is awesome. The curses we have, though, right now are just not that good. And the ones we have, you're playing, but you're not playing a large number of other curses. So you're playing 4 perma, sure. But that's it, of the really good ones. Which is why I don't think this card's very good. Alright. Islands Frostrider. Get out of my beard. 6 mana, 4/4 fire. That sucks. Stun 2 enemy units. I don't think this card's good. Stun isn't always good. And it comes on a really weak body compared to other bodies we have in this game. That's my only thought. This card is really powerful. But compared to what we already have, I'd easily slam a Thunderstrike Dragon over this card. Easily play Black Sky. Easily activate Kothon instead. I just don't think if you want a flyer, this is not what you want. If you want to play a Primal Flyer, I just named a bunch. Hell, just play Island if you want to stun. Sorry, that's Silences. What stuns? Rhyme Scale Draconis. That's the one I was looking for. That will stun. That's better than this too because it permafrost. This is not permanent. Riddle game. Draw a card for each card you've drawn this turn. Devs, is there a way to break this card? Do you just want to spill the beans? This card's really bad. You already need to be drawing enough cards at a turn. If you to get value out of this card, you need to draw 4 cards off of it. Actually, you do need to draw 4 cards. That's the math on it. And in that case, you already drew 4 cards at a turn, then paid 6 mana to draw more cards. You already either won the game or are playing some weird New Tomorrow infinite mana deck. I just don't think this card's playable. I don't think there's a combo or anything like that for this card. 6 mana, 4/4 Bond. When you bond this card, draw 2, discard 2. It's a Yeti. It's card draw in the Yeti deck. The Yeti deck might want this card, but it already has the 2 mana, 2/3 that puts Yetis further up top. And it has enough card selection that drawing rare cards might not be needed. I do think Bond is powerful. When you play this card for just its regular cost, it's not awful though, which is nice, when a lot of Yetis are. 6 mana, 4/4 is okay. Now when you get it, you pay this for 3 mana, draw 2, discard 2 is pretty good. It helps you filter through your deck. I don't think this card's awful. I just don't know if the Yeti deck needs this type of top end compared to, say, Scouting Party. 7 mana, 4/5 Bond. Dino. When you bond it, stun an enemy unit. This card's not good because the Dino deck already has enough interaction with cards like Cerso if they want to play it. I know it's not a Dino, it's a Giant, I believe. But they can still play it. Carnosaur, Zenith Initiation, Permafrost. They just don't need a Bond card like this to try to make that deck good. You have some really nice interaction in the Dinosaurs deck that this card just doesn't make the cut. Although the card's powerful. 7 mana spell. Transfer one of your Yeti into a 6/6 Jolt. So it's just a regular Jolt. Draw 2 different Yeti of your choice in your deck. So it's a 7 mana tutor that can upgrade a, like, okay, so the best case scenario is you take a 1/1, you make it a 6/6, and then you rise to the challenge without the buff for 2 Yetis. That's okay. The problem is 7 mana in the Yeti deck, and the Yeti deck does not need this as its win condition. I just would rather Wisdom of the Elders most likely instead, or strategize. I just don't think this card makes the cut in that deck because even though it's a nice card, I just personally think it's weaker than other things we have, and I don't think the Yeti deck needs this type of tutor effect currently, although it's super powerful to see a Yeti tutor. Novice Herd Rider, 7 mana 6/8, that's not great, it's an Explorer Dino, and then when you draw the Explorer Dino in your hand with the least health gets +1/+1. So it's like a 7 mana 7/9, which is not good enough in Eternal right now, with no other upside. I'm sure there are times where this comes down and you buff something perfect. Like, what happens with Echo, I wonder? Like, if this comes in, you have Hatchling in your hand, so they become 2/2s. That's okay, or 3/2s. Sorry, but I just don't think this card's very good. I don't think the effect is relevant enough, and I definitely don't want to pay 7 mana for this body that doesn't do anything. Even though it's an Explorer and a Dinosaur, there are just better options for both of those client tags in Eternal right now if you're trying to buff the Dinosaurs. Alright, 2 cards left. 8 mana, 3/4 Flying Overwhelm Bond Dino. The Dino deck doesn't need a small flyer. It has cards like Hunting Terriax if it wants to actually play a flyer. Overwhelm is okay. The Bond, so this is like a 4 mana card. A 4 mana 3/4 Flying Overwhelm is not good enough, in my opinion, to see play. And our very last card, 15 mana, 8/7 Bond. When you bond it, she gets killer. When she attacks, play 2 3/3 dinosaurs with the Overwhelm. This card's powerful in a board stall. Like, very powerful. You play this card on, like, turn 10, turn 11. Because that deck plays ramp and stuff, so you hit your power. You eventually deplete a unit, you play this. You put 14 power on the board as you kill something. I think this card's, like, maybe a 1-of in the Dinosaurs deck if it wants a way to push damage other than, say, Crystallize. So if it wants just another body, I think this is a solid 1-of. But, guys, that's going to conclude today's review of all the Primal cards of Set 3, the Dusk Road. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and I'll see you guys next time.